Before we dive into this story, take a moment. Breathe in. Now imagine losing everything, your health, your marriage, your name, and then being left to die. If this story reaches your heart, if it moves something inside you, please like this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more true stories of hidden strength, survival, and revenge. Because sometimes, healing starts by telling the truth. Let me tell you how my truth began. Not with hope, but with betrayal, hidden deep inside a lie wrapped in love. The road had almost vanished beneath us, swallowed by trees that clawed at the SUV, their branches scraping like whispers of warning. I felt every bump like a slap, my body no more than skin stretched thin over splintered bones. Marcus was behind the wheel, calm, composed, lying. "We're almost there," he said again. But he'd said that 20 minutes ago. And I had stopped believing him long before that. "Helena," he glanced at me with practiced concern. "Try to rest, you'll feel better once we're at the cabin." I didn't answer. I couldn't. The morphine muffled the pain, yes, but not the fear. Not the truth I didn't want to name. Because deep down I knew. Something was wrong. Had been wrong for months. 3 years ago, I was unstoppable. Founder and CEO of a thriving translation agency, fluent in 5 languages, jet-setting from Vienna to Montreal, leading workshops, shaking hands with diplomats. Then, the diagnosis. Stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. Everything changed. Marcus held my hand through the first round of chemo. He wiped my tears, rubbed my back while I bled into toilet bowls. Told me I was the strongest woman he knew. And I believed him. But love doesn't always mean loyalty. At first, it was little things. Fewer smiles. Late nights. Perfume that wasn't mine lingering on his shirts. I told myself, he's coping. I had no energy left to question a marriage while I fought for my life. So when he suggested leaving the city, when he mentioned some mysterious healer deep in the Montana woods, I said yes. Because I wanted to believe. Because sometimes, even a lie that sounds like hope feels better than silence. The SUV rolled to a stop in a clearing swallowed by towering pines. There it was. The cabin. A slumped, one-room structure with shuttered windows and a sagging roof. This is it. My voice cracked like dry leaves. Marcus nodded, already unloading a duffel bag from the trunk. "It's rustic, I know, but it's peaceful, isolated, the healer, he'll find us. That's how he works." He spoke like he believed it. Like he wanted me to believe it too. But everything inside me screamed otherwise. Still, I let him carry me inside. Let him tuck a blanket around my fragile frame on the cot near the fireplace. I nodded when he smiled. I even whispered, "Thank you." Because when death sits close, even fake kindness feels like something to hold. The smell of mold and dead firewood clung to the cabin walls. No lights. No water. Just shadows and silence heavy enough to crush thought. That night I lay awake. Marcus slept beside me on a mattress, turned away, snoring softly. I stared at the beams overhead, wondering what this healer would look like. Would he chant, burn herbs? Was he even real? Would anyone actually come? I don't remember falling asleep. But I remember waking up. Cold. The kind that slices. The cabin door was ajar, wind sneaking in like icy fingers. I reached for Marcus, croaked his name. No reply. The cot beside me empty. His jacket gone. My meds gone. The duffel bag vanished. I stumbled toward the window. Pain screamed through my ribs. But I made it. And what I saw? Just tire tracks in the mud. No car. No Marcus. He had left me. Left me here. To die. I sank to the floor. Not screaming, not crying. I didn't have the strength. I was nothing but breath and bones. And even the breath was starting to feel optional. I don't know how long I stayed there. Hours. Maybe more. Time dissolves when your body forgets how to live. But thirst, that primal claw, finally pulled me from the fog. I remembered a stream nearby. Waters. Maybe hope. So I crawled. Hands scraping wood, knees dragging across splinters. Door heavier than a tombstone. Outside the forest. Alive. Mocking me with its blaze of autumn reds and golds. I followed the sound. Inch by inch. Until my strength cracked. I collapsed. Face to pine needles. Breath ragged. Then, a sound. Footsteps. Not animal. Deliberate, human. Hey, a voice cut through the wind. Are you alive? I couldn't answer. I thought it was the fever. Another hallucination. Then arms. Strong, calloused, lifted me gently. Easy, I've got you. A man. Bearded. Weathered. Eyes like storm clouds. Beside him, a massive wolf-like dog, silent, watching. Then darkness. Only the warmth of a wool coat. And the sound of boots crunching leaves. That was the moment I stopped dying. That was the moment my real story began. I woke to the scent of firewood and pine, not the kind you get in fancy candles, but the real thing, damp, earthy, alive. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming, that the cabin, the betrayal, Marcus, all of it had been a nightmare. But then I felt the weight of my own body, the ache in my bones, the pounding in my head. I blinked, adjusting to the filtered light streaming through small, paned windows. This wasn't the same place Marcus left me in. This room was smaller, cleaner, warmer. A cast iron stove crackled in the corner, and shelves lined with jars and dried herbs climbed the walls like vines. A thick wool blanket covered me up to my chin. My skin was damp with sweat, but I wasn't shaking anymore. I was alive, somehow. He was sitting by the fire, the man, the one who'd carried me. The bearded stranger with storm-colored eyes. He stirred something slowly in a pot over the flame, moving with calm precision, like someone used to quiet, used to being alone. He heard me shift. "You're awake," he said, his voice low and steady but kind. "Good, I wasn't sure you'd make it through the night." I tried to speak. My throat cracked like paper, dry, useless. He rose and brought a tin cup to my lips. The drink was warm, bitter, unfamiliar, but I drank it like it was the last liquid on earth. He held the cup for me with both hands, steady and patient, like this wasn't his first time caring for someone half-broken. "What is this?" I rasped. "Chugati," he said, "for your immune system, tastes like bark but it works." I nodded faintly. I didn't care about the taste. I was just grateful to be here, breathing. Beside the door, the giant dog, or was it a wolf, lay curled in the shadows, silent, still, but its eyes never left me. Not menacing, just watchful, protective almost. "I'm Elias," the man said, returning to his place by the fire. "I live about a mile from where I found you." He glanced toward the animal. Fenner heard something, wouldn't settle. Lucky for you, I listened. I wanted to thank him, to say more, but I was too tired. So I let my head fall back against the pillow and closed my eyes. "Do you remember what happened?" he asked quietly. Images flooded back. The SUV, the forest, the empty cabin, the door left open. Marcus! The duffel bag, my medication, the tire tracks in the mud. "My husband," I whispered. He left me there, said we were going to see a healer, but he took everything, my meds, my phone, he just left. Elias didn't respond immediately. When I opened my eyes again, his jaw was tight, his fists clenched on the armrest. He left you to die, he said, almost to himself. I didn't reply, I didn't have to. The days that followed bled together, like ink in water. I drifted in and out of consciousness. But he was always there. Elias. He never left for long. Sometimes I'd wake to the smell of broth, his hand on my forehead. Sometimes to the sound of him reading old poetry, journals filled with plant sketches, and loops of faded ink. He didn't talk much. He didn't ask questions either. He just stayed. Quiet, present, unshakable. Eventually, when my voice returned in soft whispers, I told him everything. About Marcus. About the cancer. The surgeries, the nights I pretended I wasn't terrified. How my career vanished overnight. How I gave up more than just my body. I gave up my power, my trust, my fight. He listened, not with pity but something deeper. Like he'd tasted betrayal too. He told me his story one night, as the fire hummed low. He'd been a biologist once, focused on medicinal plants. Built a research lab with his best friend, a man he trusted more than anyone. Together, they hunted for cures the world said were impossible. And then, that friend stole everything. Patented the work. Accused Elias of fraud. Left him to drown in lawsuits and shame. His wife left. His reputation crumbled. So he came to the woods. To disappear. To die. But I didn't, he said, his eyes fixed on the fire. Fenner found me, or maybe I found him, I don't know, but if that dog wasn't giving up, maybe I didn't have to either. I looked at him differently after that. Not as a hermit or a recluse, but as someone like me, broken, burned, but still breathing. That night, he sat by my cot again, reading softly from an old notebook filled with formulas, sketches of roots, recipes for healing. You have a gift, I whispered. He shrugged. No one wants nature anymore. They want pills, labels, quick fixes. Not everyone, I said, not me. Silence stretched between us. Fenner snored softly near the door. The wind played with the edge of the roof. I don't think I can go back, I whispered. Elias turned toward me. His eyes met mine. Then don't, he said. Heal first, the rest will come. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I believed him. Not because he promised a cure, but because he didn't see me as a patient, or a burden, or something broken to be pitied. He saw me as someone still becoming. The days fell into a rhythm I hadn't known in years. There were no alarms, no calendars taped to refrigerators, no blinking phones demanding my attention. Just the quiet crackle of fire, the breath of wind weaving through tall trees, the faint hum of Elias moving through his world with silent purpose. Each morning, I woke wrapped in wool, the pain less sharp than the day before. My breath no longer came in short, panicked rasps. My hands stopped trembling when I held the tin cup. My body, broken and forgotten by medicine, had started to return to me. Not like before, but slowly, piece by piece. Elias never hovered, but he was always near. Tending herbs, drying roots, grinding bark into powder and whispering names of plants under his breath like prayers. He never asked if I was okay. He simply made space for me to become someone who might be. I began to notice things. The way the sunlight shifted through the trees in the late afternoon. The way Fenner tilted his head when the wind changed. The way Elias moved when he thought no one was watching, focused, quiet, as if in conversation with the world around him. One afternoon, while Fenner slept beneath the table and Elias sorted herbs on the wooden counter, he spoke. You know about lichens, he asked. I smiled faintly. Vaguely, I remember they're like moss, sort of. He chuckled under his breath. Not quite. They're not one organism. They're two, fungus and algae living together. One provides structure, the other nourishment. Alone, they're useless. Together, they survive places nothing else can. A codependent mess, I said, teasing gently. Maybe, he replied, but also they thrive on ruins, on stone, on forgotten places. He looked at me, eyes soft. They're tougher than they look. I turned toward the window, watching the leaves swirl outside in slow, golden spirals. I used to think strength meant pushing through, I said quietly. Pretending everything's fine, smiling when your bones ache, laughing when your whole world is caving in. And now, he asked. Now I think, real strength is choosing not to harden, even when everything in you wants to. He didn't say anything. But his eyes held that same quiet weight I was learning to recognize, the weight of someone who listens with his soul. That evening, for the first time, I managed to walk to the porch with his help. We sat on the edge of the step, the sky awash in silver and pink. The forest stretched out before us like a secret. You ever think about going back? I asked. He was quiet for a long time. To what? He said finally. To the world, the people, your work, your research. He rubbed his palms together, scarred, rough. I did once, he said, but when everything was taken from me, I realized the only thing I ever really owned was silence. He turned toward me slowly. This place, Helena, it doesn't lie. I nodded, I understood. But people still need what you know, I said. Your mind, your work. He hesitated. Then asked gently, and you, what do you need? I opened my mouth, then paused. I didn't know. Not anymore. I didn't need Marcus. I didn't need the office, or the name on the company wall, or the endless grind of ambition. I didn't even need to be the person I was before the diagnosis, the polished, powerful woman collecting awards like armor. I just needed to belong. To feel like the world still had a place for me. Not a place carved from pain, but one built from choice. The next morning, I found one of his journals lying open on the table. I picked it up, letting my fingers brush the edges of pages worn soft by time and weather. The notes were beautiful. Intricate. Scientific. Personal. Latin names beside hand-sketched leaves. Diagrams of root systems. Lines of ink that had blurred slightly from damp fingers. These should be published, I said aloud. He didn't answer, just kept feeding the stove. I mean it, Elias, this isn't just research, it's a map, a lifeline. He looked over his shoulder, his face unreadable. No one's going to publish anything from a disgraced researcher who lives in the woods. Then we won't go to journals, I said. We'll write our own, self-publish, make something real. Something flickered behind his eyes then, not quite belief, not quite disbelief. But something close to hope. You'd help me do that, he asked, almost in a whisper. I nodded. You saved my life, let me help you give it back to the world. He didn't reply. But I saw it, the shift in his shoulders, the loosened breath. As the leaves turned from gold to ash and the nights deepened with frost, I grew stronger. Not perfect. Not cured. But whole in a way I hadn't been for years. One morning, wrapped in Elias' old flannel, I stepped outside without his help for the first time. Fenner padded beside me like a shadow. We followed the narrow path down to the creek, winding silver through moss. I sat on a fallen log, the sun warming my face. I was still sick. But I wasn't afraid anymore. That day, I told Elias I wanted to go back. Not to Marcus. Not to the life I had lost. But to face the truth. And take back what was stolen. He didn't try to stop me. Didn't ask when I'd leave. He just stood beside me in the golden light and nodded once. And though neither of us said it, I felt it, the promise. He wasn't letting go. And neither was I. I didn't cry when I left the cabin. I thought I might. But the truth is, I felt ready. Not strong exactly, but clear. Like something in me had been scraped clean, and now there was space for something new. I left just after dawn. Elias's old flannel wrapped around me like armor. Fenner followed me through the trees, silent and steady, until we reached the edge of the trail. Bill, a hunter from the nearby village and an old friend of Elia's, was waiting for me in a rusted truck. He didn't ask questions, just helped me into the seat and nodded as if he already knew everything he needed to know. Elias stood on the porch, arms crossed, jaw tight. We hadn't said much that morning. We didn't need to. As I climbed into the truck, I turned to him. "I'll find you," I said. His eyes softened. "When it's done." Then he said something I didn't expect. "Don't be gentle." It took me a second to understand. He meant with Marcus. Missoula blurred into highways. Highways blurred into cities. The noise felt like an attack. Everything too sharp, too loud, too bright. I hadn't seen myself in a mirror in almost 3 months. And when I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the bus window, I didn't recognize the woman looking back. Paler. Thinner. But not hollow. Something in her eyes had changed. She carried the forest with her now. Back in Minneapolis, I didn't go home. I couldn't. I had no keys, no phone, no money. Marcus had cut me off from everything the moment he drove me into those woods. So I went to the only place I could think of. Anna's. My oldest friend. Roommate from college. The only person who had seen me shattered and never looked away. When she opened the door and saw me, sunburned, gaunt, wrapped in flannel, she froze. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her voice caught in her throat. "Helena, oh my God," we thought. I collapsed into her arms before she could finish. Later, wrapped in one of her oversized sweaters, with warm soup in my hands and tears running freely down both our faces, I told her everything. From the cancer to the betrayal. From Marcus's lies to the day he left me to die. And when I showed her the forged death certificate Elias had helped me retrieve, the one Marcus had filed at a private hospice to claim my assets, she turned pale. "We're going to bury him," she said. I believed her. We hired a small team, quiet, sharp. Legal experts with no appetite for drama, just results. I didn't want a tabloid story. I wanted justice. What we uncovered was worse than I imagined. Marcus had forged the death certificate. Withdrawn every cent from our joint accounts. Sold the lake house. Held a memorial service, complete with speeches and fake tears. Then moved Elise into our apartment just 1 week later. There were photos. Videos. Posts Elise had never thought to delete. One image showed her in my old robe, holding a mug I'd brought from Prague. A trip Marcus had once said we couldn't afford. He told people I died peacefully in hospice. That I gave him permission to move on. Said I had accepted the end. But the only one who was ready to let go was him. When the subpoena landed, Marcus appeared in court wearing a crisp navy suit, looking appropriately shocked. He called it a misunderstanding. Claimed someone else must have filed the paperwork. Said he left the cabin because he thought I was already gone. He cried on the stand. He played the victim like a role he'd been rehearsing his whole life. But I remembered the look in his eyes that morning. He hadn't looked back. He hadn't panicked. He had looked free. I took the stand. I told the truth. Every raw, broken piece of it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg for sympathy. I just told them what he did. What it cost me. How it felt to be discarded, like expired medicine. To be left behind. When I finished, I looked him in the eyes. And I saw it. Not guilt. Not regret. Just rage. He was losing control, and he knew it. The verdict came swiftly. 8 years in prison for fraud, attempted murder, and financial exploitation. Elise received a suspended sentence for her cooperation. She never looked at me. Only at Marcus with disgust. As the bailiff led him away, Marcus turned over his shoulder. "You should have died out there," he hissed. I didn't flinch. I stood tall, met his gaze, and said softly, "Just for him." I did. And now you get to live with what came back. That night, Anna and I sat on her small balcony under the glow of fairy lights. She poured wine. I drank ginger tea. "You did it," she whispered. I shook my head. "No. I survived it." "That's different." The air smelled like rain. Like the city. Like endings. But also beginnings. And that's when I knew. I wasn't done yet. It took me less than 3 days to finalize everything. The moment the settlement cleared, the moment my name was legally restored to every asset Marcus had tried to erase me from, I made a choice. Not to rebuild the life I had, but to build something new. Something real. I bought a cabin. Small, quiet. Tucked on the edge of a conservation area just outside Bozeman. Not in a city. Not in a manicured suburb. But in a place where the trees still breathed freely. Where the stars didn't have to compete with neon lights. I didn't decorate much. Whitewashed walls. Warm wooden floors. A single large watercolor painting, commissioned from a local artist. A memory, not a photograph. A frozen creek. A shadow of a log cabin. And the silhouette of a man kneeling beside a wolf-like dog, bathed in firelight. I hung it in the living room, directly across from the window, so the first light of morning would always touch it. This cabin wasn't just for me. It was for him too. If he wanted it. And so I returned. 5 months had passed since I crawled through pine needles, barely alive. 5 months of paperwork and courtrooms and settlements and headlines I never wanted. But through it all, I had never stopped hearing his voice. That low, steady voice reading by firelight. His footsteps on the porch while I burned with fever. His hands checking my pulse in the dark. I packed my new SUV with everything I could carry. Food. Medicine. Books. Courage. I didn't know if he'd still be there. Didn't even know if he'd want to see me. But I had to try. The forest welcomed me back slowly. The road winding tighter. The trees taller. The silence deeper. And then, the clearing. My breath caught in my throat. The cabin stood exactly where I left it. Smoke curling gently from the chimney. The woodpile stacked neatly. The windows glowing gold. Then a flash of gray fur. A low, familiar howl. "Fenner," I whispered. And then he was bounding toward me, massive and fast and wild with joy. Before I could even open the door, he was on me, whining, pressing his weight against my legs, licking the salt from my cheeks. I buried my hands in his fur. "I missed you too," I whispered, "so much." And then I saw him. Elias. Standing on the porch like a man caught in a dream. Thinner. Beard longer. Eyes still storm gray, but shaded now with disbelief and something softer. I took a step forward. "I came back," I said. He didn't move. I looked at him, waiting. I said I would. He didn't speak. He stepped down, slowly, as if unsure the ground would hold him. Stopped just close enough that I could feel the warmth of his skin. The scent of cedar and wood smoke clung to him like memory. "You're here," he whispered. I nodded, "and I'm not leaving unless you ask me to." He exhaled. Then quietly, gently, he reached out and touched my hand. It wasn't a kiss. Not even a full embrace. But it was enough. Later we sat beside the fire, Fenner curled between us, the cabin bathed in amber light. I told him about the new place. About the idea. "A healing center," I said. "Small, private, just us, we don't need much." He didn't interrupt. "We use your research, combine it with traditional care. We take the people medicine gave up on, people like me." He stared into the flames. "You really think anyone would trust someone like me again?" I turned toward him. "I don't think they'll have a choice, once they see what you've done for me." His lips lifted, just a little. A crack in the ice. "I kept the journals," he said softly. Started adding more, notes, recipes, observations. I smiled. "Then we start with that." Outside, the trees whispered as the wind moved through them in long, ancient sighs. The forest didn't reject me this time. It welcomed me. Not as a stranger, but as someone who belonged. That night, beneath a quilt older than memory, with my head on Elia's shoulder, I let myself imagine spring. The thaw. The bloom. The sound of laughter, inside walls that once only held survival. I had been buried. And I had grown back. Not the same. But better. The first patient arrived in late May. Her name was Clara. 42. Diagnosed with late-stage lupus. Every specialist had told her the same thing. "It's time to make peace, there's nothing more we can do." But Clara wasn't ready to surrender. She came quietly. No questions. No assumptions. Just eyes wide with exhaustion and something else. A flicker, the tiniest flame of hope. She didn't ask for a miracle. Just not to be alone. We gave her the guest house behind the cabin. Small. Cozy. Enough. Elias designed a regimen for her. Herbs. Soaks. Stillness. Soft routines shaped by the rhythms of the forest. I cooked soups from recipes scribbled in the margins of my grandmother's old cookbooks. Thyme and bone broths. Roasted root vegetables. Bread with honey I'd bartered from a neighbor. We didn't promise her healing. We promised her presence. And we kept that promise. By the third week, Clara stopped watching herself in the mirror for signs of dying. She started writing poetry again. She started humming while she chopped vegetables. We called our place the Thicket. No sign out front. No brochures. No website. Just word of mouth. And quiet referrals from hospice nurses who understood that sometimes healing isn't about conquering the disease. It's about remembering you're still human while it tries to conquer you. People came in silence. They arrived with bags full of medications and fears. They stayed. They wept. They rested. And then they left. Not always cured, but always changed. Elias rarely spoke to the patients at first. He stayed in the garden, hands deep in the earth, tending to roots and mushrooms and soft things that refused to die. But one by one, they began to seek him out. They asked about teas, about tinctures, about the plants he scribbled in his notebooks, about the stars, about pain. And he answered, not with rehearsed speeches, but with truth. He began teaching again. One-on-one. Nothing formal. Nothing loud. But I saw it, the light return to his eyes. The fire rekindling in the space between silence and service. I watched it return to me too. In small ways. The way I laughed without choking. The way I didn't flinch when someone touched my shoulder. The way I stood in the morning light without needing to brace myself first. Some mornings, I walked the perimeter of the woods alone. Fenner always packing behind me like a shadow stitched to my ankles. The forest had its own language. The crack of pine cones underfoot. The birds that waited until just the right light to sing. The hush between wind gusts, as if the trees were breathing with me. The ghosts that had once haunted these woods had softened. They no longer shouted. They whispered. And I had stopped being afraid of what they had to say. One morning in October, crisp and golden, Elias and I stood beneath the cottonwoods. Leaves fell around us like slow-motion rain. Amber gold fire. My fingers brushed his. He laced them through mine. We never asked for this life, I said quietly. No, he replied. But we choose it. I nodded. That's the difference, isn't it? He looked at me. And I knew he understood. Life doesn't always give you what you want. But it always offers something. A second breath. A warm meal. A stranger who doesn't walk away. A place in the wilderness that remembers your name when you've forgotten it yourself. People often ask me now, why didn't you stay in the city? Why didn't you take the settlement and start fresh somewhere warm, anonymous, easy? And I tell them this. Because healing doesn't happen where it's safe. It happens where it's real. And I needed real. I needed the soil under my nails. The scratch of bark against my palms. The scent of burning wood and the sound of wolves crying in the distance. I needed to remember that I had survived something meant to kill me. And not only did I survive, I came back. Every night, we light a single lantern in the front window of the thicket. Not for decoration. Not for style. But for the wanderer. The lost one. The person walking the edge of their own darkness. That light says, there is still hope. There is still warmth. You are not alone. And sometimes, when I pass the mirror at the end of the hallway, I catch a glimpse of the woman I used to be. Only for a moment. Because that woman, the one who smiled through pain, the one who begged to be seen, the one who was left behind in the woods, she died out there. And the one who stands here now, she's something else entirely. If you've made it this far, thank you for walking through the forest with me, for sitting by the fire, for listening to the silence between the words. This wasn't just a story of betrayal. It was a story of becoming, of breaking and then choosing to rebuild, of remembering that sometimes the life we're meant to live doesn't begin until we've been brought to our knees. If this story touched something inside you, if it reminded you of your own strength, your own second breath, then please, like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and comment below what part of this story will stay with you, and if you believe that even in the darkest woods, light can still find you. Subscribe for more stories of hidden strength, healing, and the kind of revenge that doesn't destroy, but rebuilds. Because sometimes, the best revenge is simply becoming someone unstoppable. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay wild, stay soft, stay real. The lantern's always lit.